and we will begin with a short video about ResearchHERs.
What does it take to outsmart cancer? Research.
It's been revolutionary to have women-led research teams.
I lead a team of 10 researchers. We identified a key gene that's mutated in blood cancers.
My mentor, Dr. Janet Rowling, proved the genetic basis of cancer. I built on her research and made new discoveries that led to new treatments that helped put patients into remission.
In the last 20 years, we have made significant progress. There are now 5 drugs that we can use to target breast cancer, and some of these drugs also are involved in ovarian and prostate cancer.
Diversity exists within cancer, and so why not have the same type of diversity and inclusion in scientists?
We're looking at the specific types of cancer that shows up in women of African descent.
I'm investigating why certain chemotherapies aren't working to treat triple-negative breast cancer.
This is a really exciting time to be involved in cancer research because there have been a lot of breakthroughs.
The pace of cancer discovery is more rapid than ever before. And it's an irony that at this time, there is limited government funding for cancer research.
A number of my peers have had to close their laboratories because they were unable to obtain NIH funding.
And young women researchers are at a disadvantage. Women are awarded smaller first-time NIH research grants than men, $41,000 less annually.
The American Cancer Society has created a new initiative to fund women-led research.
Because we need to keep these young women investigators engaged and supported. At a critical time in my career, the American Cancer Society gave me funding.
They've funded me at 2 key points in my career. The first time was as a junior investigator, and the ACS enabled me to launch my laboratory.
The ResearchHERs initiative will allow us to fund the many women who have the kind of energy, excitement, and intellect to finding treatments and cures for cancer.
I'm hoping to find a cure for leukemia.
I'm hoping to use genetics to help patients live longer and better lives.
There's always a question to ask, and having a grant allows me to continue to ask those questions.
The American Cancer Society ResearchHERs initiative is a unique opportunity to invest in promising young women investigators.
Because that's the next generation that we're all here to support.
We've been given the gift of time, and so we want to ensure that we're investing not just our time, but our talent and, yes, our money in finding ways to find cures and hope.
Together, we'll find a cure.
Hello, and welcome to our October edition of the 2022 Los Angeles ResearchHERs Women Fighting Cancer campaign. My name is Kelsey Davis, and I am the American Cancer Society staff lead for the Los Angeles ResearchHERs campaign. We launched this 2-part speaker series in May, and we thank you for joining us for the final session of the year today. ResearchHERs is a movement that raises awareness and funds to support women-led cancer research. Today, we will hear from a group of female researchers who will share about their work and the importance of women leadership in cancer research. To kick off our program today, it is my pleasure to introduce you all to our virtual MC, NBC4 investigative reporter, Lolita Lopez. Lolita has been part of the NBC4 team since 2011. She can be seen daily reporting for NBC4 News at 11 a.m. and 4, 5, 6, and 11 p.m. A journalist for more than 20 years, Lolita feels privileged to tell people's stories and honored to meet many inspiring people along the way. As a breast cancer survivor, she has shared her own challenges during treatment and recovery with a series of stories on her courageous fight against the disease as a working mother and wife. Lolita and NBC4 are longtime supporters of the American Cancer Society, supporting our Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk for many years. Lolita also served as a moderator for our 2021 Los Angeles ResearchHERs campaign. We are so thankful to have Lolita join us again today.
Yay. Thank you so much, Kelsey. This is me cheering. I so appreciate being here. The last time I was here and every time that I sit down with any doctor that's doing the research, and the work that you all are doing is unbelievable. And I'm humbled that even in the 9 years that I have been a survivor, so many amazing changes have happened. As I talk to my crew of female doctors who helped me work through it and battle my cancer, it was something that is just always inspiring me to do this. So I love being here, and I cannot wait to get the conversation started. So again, I am a 9-year survivor. I am totally connected with the American Cancer Society. In fact, I just did their walk here in LA. The first time I did it was when I was diagnosed, and unbeknownst to them, they had just asked me to do it. So that event and these events always mean so much to me, because I know through education and awareness and discussion, we really can help a lot of people to go not just in early detection and what we should be doing, but also to get critical funds and the folks that can be helping researchers that you're about to learn from do the work that they need so that they can help us. Full circle here. All right, as you heard there in the introduction video, women can make invaluable contributions to cancer research, but they're consistently underrepresented in research leadership. So the ResearchHERs campaign wants to change that. And together, we can sustain women-led cancer research, bolster the career of women researchers, and inspire a new generation of future female leaders in cancer research. So again, thank you all so very much for being part of this amazing movement. Special thanks here has to go out for sure to Cedars-Sinai as a presenting sponsor of this year's ResearchHERs campaign. Thank you so very much, Cedars-Sinai, for your dedication to supporting women in research. Of course, during the month of October, we tend to see a lot of pink, wearing it myself, and a strong focus around breast cancer, because the association that everyone has with October and cancer, it's a great time for cancer awareness in general. So today's speaker series focuses on women-led cancer research and the many findings that advance the overall fight against cancer. We're going to learn today about the research, celebrate important topics, and inspire a call to action to support more women in STEM. So I'm so glad that everybody is here from wherever you are across the country and the world. Thank you so very much for joining. I love that this type of medium, while I can't see you in person, really does allow folks to be involved if they couldn't in other ways. So this is an opportunity to not just hear from women leading cutting edge cancer research in our backyards and at institutions throughout Los Angeles County, but we have the privilege today of highlighting 4 women cancer researchers from Cedars-Sinai and 1 ACS funded researcher from UC Irvine. So let's get right to it. First, I want to start us off with introducing our 2022 Los Angeles ResearchHERs campaign chair, Dr. Lali Medina Kawai. Dr. Medina Kawai was one of our speakers last year and has graciously volunteered her time and efforts to serve as the campaign chair. Dr. Medina Kawai is a professor of biomedical sciences and a program leader of the cancer biology program at Cedars-Sinai. So right now, please help me welcome Dr. Medina Kawai to share her involvement with ResearchHERs and why this is a priority for Cedars-Sinai.
Thanks so much, Lolita. I had a great time chatting with you last year, and it's great to be back again today and to see you as a 9-year survivor. That's so great to see, and many more years of survivorship. So first off, I'd like to just update you from the last year. I have promoted to Associate Director for Basic Research in the Cancer Center, and one of our speakers has filled the cancer biology leadership position within the Cancer Center. And so we're just 2 examples of the increasing numbers of women representing and filling leadership positions and on a leadership trajectory at Cedars-Sinai's Medical Center, and women in cancer research being recognized for the significant contributions that they are making, that we are making in our respective fields in cancer research. So I come to you as a researcher in nanotechnology development. I am developing tumor-targeted nanobiologics, and I am currently testing these for targeting triple-negative breast cancer tumors that have metastasized to the brain, an area for which there are few effective therapies, and we're really hoping to improve treatment and survivorship and safety in those areas. But along those lines, as this year's Los Angeles campaign chair for ResearchHERs, which really means a lot to me and is dear to my heart, I am also a native Angelino, and I come from a multi-ethnic heritage that is, I would say, reflective of our LA community. And if you know anything about the cancer research field and research in general, researchers often tend to relocate a lot, mobilize a lot to different research institutes based on their research specialty and research interests. So they can, you know, mobilize sometimes at a moment's notice for where they are needed. I'm hoping, though, that I can offer my unique experiences as a quote unquote local girl to the diversity of voices in cancer research. And just as was introduced in the video, cancer patients are not cut from the same mold, and neither are cancer researchers. So it is great to have the lineup today that we do and to introduce them to you. I'd like to just finish off by saying that the American Cancer Society did give me my start in cancer research and encouraged me to apply for full lab grant funding, which has been supporting me the whole way in my career. And so this is another reason why this is a very important initiative, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. So with that, I will give it back to you, Lolita.
There we go. I found the unmute. Thank you so very much, Dr. Medina Coy. That's amazing. And thank you to Cedars-Sinai again for your generous support. So let's get to it. Who are these amazing women? I feel like I need a drum roll here, but I will just pretend and we'll just do a clap and you'll see them on your screen there. We'll start with Dr. Dolores DeVizio. She's professor of surgery, pathology, and biomedical sciences at Cedars-Sinai. Dr. Shelley Liu also joining us and giving up her time. She is professor of medicine, director of the Karsh Division of Gastroenterology and Hepatology at Cedars-Sinai. I'm probably saying that wrong. Correct me, please. I have no problem with that. Dr. Yelenia Guarnerio is assistant professor of biomedical sciences, radiation oncology at Cedars-Sinai. Dr. Monica Mita is professor of medicine and co-director of the early phase developmental therapy program at Cedars-Sinai. An associate professor of molecular biology and biochemistry at UC Irvine, and our ACS-funded researcher, Dr. Katrina Whiteson, is also here with us. Ladies, thank you so very much for being part of this important discussion. And you all out there in cyber world, you can find their full bios for each of today's panelists on the Los Angeles ResearchHERs website. So I want to say that again. You can find their bios, find out what they're doing. If it connects with you, please connect with them on the ResearchHERs website, the LA one. So great lineup here. Glad to get this conversation started. And I'm going to start it with some questions for our panelists, but I also want to encourage audience members or folks out there listening to us to ask your own questions. So please put those in the chat box. We've got Kelsey monitoring for us, and she'll, if we have the time there at the end, which we are hoping to do this, we're going to have a few questions from you also. Please do not be shy and put that out there. And as you can see, I think we have all of our lovely ladies up and accounted for. How's everyone doing? Everyone okay? Thumbs up? Yeah, ready to get this conversation started. Okay, so let's get going here. And first thing I want to know is, what do you all do? Your amazing research is so incredible. And I would love to get a little bit about your journey, where you are in your cancer research and where you are today. So I'm going to do round robin here, and we'll start with Dr. DeVizio.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lolita. Thank you all for having this amazing and very important event. So my journey in cancer started very long time ago. I've been a cancer researcher for most of my life, I would say at this point, starting in the medical school when I was in Italy, through my residency in pathology, and then I briefly moved to the UK for 1 year during my PhD program, and then I spent 2 years at Albert Einstein in New York, and then I decided to stay in the US, and I continued in Boston, where I spent 10 years, and then I moved to Cedars-Sinai 10 years ago. I was particularly interested in cancer and especially the fact that some tumors are so different and so aggressive. And I was particularly interested in that. So when I was in Boston, we had the discovery, we demonstrated that particularly aggressive cancer cells release extracellular vesicles, which are very small particles that contain a lot of the components of the cell and can be used by cells for intercellular communication. And so my lab has been focused on trying to understand the role of these vesicles in tumor progression, and that's one part of my laboratory that includes 8 junior scientists, where we're trying to use cell culture models and mouse models to understand how these vesicles play a role in tumor metastasis. And the other half of my laboratory is focused on isolate these vesicles from the blood of patients and other biofluids so that we can have real-time information about the biological status of the tumor and even monitor response to therapy. So it's been a long and amazing journal so far.
Well, then thank you so much for what you do, Dr. DeVizio. That sounds unbelievable. Dr. Liu, how about yourself?
Let me unmute myself. Thank you, Lolita, and I am delighted to participate in this very important event. Now, my journey into cancer research was quite fortuitous. Kind of like my entire career has been quite fortuitous. I kind of just went with the flow. So my mentor talked me into going into gastroenterology. So I went into gastroenterology, and he's a physician scientist that was working on how glutathione is transported. So for those of you not familiar, glutathione is a very important antioxidant. So we don't have to have it. And so while I was working on how glutathione is getting transported, one of the ways that we do it is we add a certain amino acid called methionine that we have to eat in our diet. And in the liver, if you put methionine in the liver cell, if you put methionine in the medium, glutathione level goes up because they have a certain pathway that can convert methionine to glutathione. But we were using liver cancer cells first to study this. And lo and behold, every time we tried the experiment, added methionine, nothing happened. So, you know, we kept repeating. I said, there must be a mistake. And then over my career, I've learned that oftentimes the unexpected results are the best because they're telling you something that you didn't know before, or that's something no one knew before. And then we found out that the reason liver cancer cells can't convert methionine to glutathione is because there's a gene that is not expressed. So I've spent my past 20, 30 years on this journey of studying the importance of these genes in liver disease, liver injury, and liver cancer. Now, what these genes do is that they are involved in making the methyl donor that we need in our cells. And we actually have this supplement, this methyl donor in the US. It's called S-adenosylmethionine. So I've spent a lot of my career looking at the role of S-adenosylmethionine in liver cancer. And we have found that if the liver doesn't have enough S-adenosylmethionine, the liver is prone to develop cancer. And we're now looking at cancers that metastasize to the liver. So metastatic liver cancer is really it's almost the final stage. Once you have liver metastasis, it's a fatal outcome in general. And we're looking at how does the liver defend itself against liver metastasis? So what are the defensive mechanisms in the liver? And are there ways that we can boost up the defense mechanisms? And how does the cancer talk to the liver to lower its defense. So we're trying to understand these mechanisms. So it's been a great journey. I got into it completely by chance because of what I thought was a mistake, a technical error in the experiment, but it turned out to be a great ride. So
oh my goodness, I love your ride, Dr. Liu. That's amazing. And I, as an athlete, T-sport athlete, and I was coached by my dad. My dad is a coach and all, like he always said, you never really lose. You learn from a loss. So I feel like you learn from a mistake and you keep moving forward in your field of work. So thank you so very much. Dr. Mita, how about yourself? And welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Lolita, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this fantastic event. So my story is quite a long story, but I don't have a lab. I don't work in a lab. I do clinical research, so clinical studies. And I think my story is also like a little bit similar. I didn't really plan to do that when I was in medical school. Actually, I graduated, just to kind of know, you kind of know my age now. I graduated from medical school in Romania 30 years ago. And at that time, I wanted to do any specialty but oncology, because at that time in Romania, cancer was something like you could not treat. You didn't have any treatments available. So I just wanted to be an endocrinologist. So that didn't happen. I actually moved to France to do a master's degree in science immediately after graduation. And I discovered, my apologies, I discovered that the molecular pathways were just starting being, introduced and explored. So I was so interested on, how the cancer cell behaves compared to the normal cells and what differences in molecular pathways we have. So that's kind of how I got into oncology. And then I, continued the same way. I passed my internship in oncology and fellowship in France. I finished there, and then I moved here to do a second fellowship in drug development and basically learn how to do early clinical studies. And I was first in San Antonio and then here in LA for the last 11 years, where I was recruited together with my husband and also a medical investigator, clinical investigator, to run the phase 1 unit and to build a phase 1 unit at the cancer center. What that means is phase 1s are basically taking drugs that were never used in people, cancer drugs, to see if they're well tolerated and if they work. So it's pretty difficult to perform phase 1 studies, especially for drugs that were never used. But it's very exciting because this gives new hope to people, to patients, and we've seen quite good responses. That being said, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince out of this, phase 1 study drugs. But it's always exciting, and as the technology improves and as we see more and more targeted therapy and immune therapies, the field goes so fast at this moment. So it's just like an excitement every day to be part of this. So I never regretted to do another, to do oncology instead of another specialty. So this is my journey.
Oh, I love your journey. Thank you so much. I love all of these happy mistakes. We're the ones that benefit from it. So thank you, Dr. Mita, so much. Dr. Guanerio.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for organizing this event. So my journey in research started back in Italy, like Dolores Divizio, and then moved to Boston, like Dolores Divizio as well, in 2010. So in Boston, I did my PhD and my postdoc. And then I started my own lab here in LA in 2018 at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. So my lab now study basically how tumor cells interact with and exploit normal cells of the tumor microenvironment. So when we think about a tumor mass, we have to think that the tumor cells are the main components, but they're not alone there. There are many other normal cells. For example, there are cells of blood vessels, immune cells, neurons, and so on and so forth. And these normal cells are not just bystander, but somehow because of the continuous interaction with the tumor cells, they kind of become corrupted. And somehow they also help tumor cells to grow and proliferate. So we think that try to understand this means of corruption, how tumor cells corrupt and can we can identify new vulnerabilities that can be also targets for therapy. So we are not targeting directly tumor cells here, but we are cutting down all this help that the tumor cells get from the outside. And we think that this can be helpful for different types of tumors. Indeed, like many mechanisms can be shared. But in this moment, in my lab, we are specifically focusing on soft tissue sarcomas because it's a very aggressive disease. Many targeted therapies directly to the tumor cells failed in the past year. So we don't have really new therapies now. And we hope that looking at these tumors with different eyes, so looking at this external helper can also promote development of new therapies for patients.
Unreal. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I love how your journeys are very similar. That's also really cool. Dr. Whiteson, last but certainly not least, please tell us a little bit about your journey and your research.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for organizing and including me. Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a lot of fortuitous turns in how I landed on the type of research that I do right now. So I study the microbiome, all the different microbes that live on our bodies in health and disease. And that didn't even exist as a field, even when I was a graduate student. So my education was all in biochemistry. I went to Berkeley and the University of Chicago studying biochemistry. I was in a crystallography lab. It was very detailed views of individual proteins and their interactions with DNA. And so it was actually when I graduated from my PhD, I had just had my first baby, and my husband is a particle physicist, and we had to move to Geneva, Switzerland, so that he could be near the big particle collider in Geneva. And actually, all my friends were flying around the United States, getting great postdocs. I was really excited about synthetic biology at the time. And so I had this interesting moment where it was like, well, obviously I was going to Geneva with my new baby and my husband, but it really did affect, I think I know there's going to be questions here about women research issues. And I think the need to move around to get new education and research opportunities is harder for women, especially if they're married and have children. And so we went to Geneva, but it actually worked out great for me. I met the guy who was the chief of the infectious disease division at the big public hospital in Geneva, the University of Geneva Hospitals, and he loved research. And it was right when DNA sequencing was becoming cheap. And so I arranged a postdoc in that group, and it was with a lot of freedom. I could never have arranged this postdoc on purpose, but it was right when the microbiome was becoming a field. And we didn't know very basic things like what's in an average saliva sample, what microbes are in there. We had no idea. What a fun question. It's just so much exploration. And we really didn't know the answer to these incredibly basic questions, like what microbes are in a saliva sample. So that was my first project. I wrote an IRB, collected saliva samples from all over the hospital, started sequencing everything. There wasn't even software for it at that time. So it was such an interesting uphill battle to even figure out what was in my data, because it was such a new kind of data to analyze. And that just got me hooked. So from there on, I worked really hard to find opportunities to do microbiome science, studying the microbes on the human body. I did a postdoc in San Diego, and I started my own lab here at UC Irvine in 2014. And when I started my lab, we counted it up once, I had 120 different labs contact me wanting to collaborate just right around the time I started my lab, which obviously is not a good idea. So we started a microbiome center. So now I co-direct our microbiome center together with an ecologist, a woman named Jennifer Martini, who's a professor in our ecology department. And we have microbiome science going on a number of fronts, and cancer is a really important one. And I've had so many themes of our research come back to the fact that people don't eat enough fiber in the industrialized world. And, some of our projects focus on diagnostics. So I have ACS funding to study colon cancer and polyp detection. And some of the indicating bacteria are basically saying lack of fiber is the problem, because the microbes need fiber to break down in our colon. And we also have other research projects focused on cancer in terms of dietary interventions. And just in general, there's a lot of room to increase the efficacy of diagnostics and also treatment using microbiome science.
Wow, amazing. Literally a whole new world you've created. Thank you so very much, Dr. Whiteson. I'm just so moved by all of the work that's being done in so many different fields to research and look into all of so many layers of what is cancer, right? So let's get to a little bit more about some of the things that excite us, right? That always makes me feel good about, like, what is it out there that we are looking at that really is the one advancement in cancer research that you are particularly excited about? And I'm going to serve this up to a couple of you, and then the next question will be to a couple of others. But if you want to chime in, just please let me know, because I think it's wonderful. If you hear something, you want to say something, I appreciate that. But actually, Dr. Weitzman, why don't we start with you? The one advancement in cancer research that you are particularly excited about?
For me, some of the results that have come out in the last few years showing how having a healthy microbiome has a big impact on whether cancer treatment will work. I think that's fascinating and leaves a huge amount of room for like near-term and enormous improvement in cancer treatment outcomes. So, for example, if you have melanoma and have the opportunity to receive immunotherapy, a novel cancer therapy that helps your immune system go after the cancer itself, we now know that the success, like about 30% of people have their immunotherapy succeed in that context. And those people start out with what we think of as a healthy microbiome, which in itself is something we are learning about still. It's like a research question, like what is a healthy microbiome? But people with a particular type of microbe, you know, their community in their gut of microbes is healthy, they have a better chance of having their immunotherapy succeed. And now we know that if you do a fecal transplant from someone who had a successful immunotherapy into someone whose immunotherapy failed, you can actually increase their chances of having a successful cancer treatment. And we know that eating fiber will push people in a good direction as well. And so I feel like we've done so much to develop these cancer treatments in the last few decades, and we could do a lot to make more people have a successful treatment with somewhat straightforward interventions. To go from 30% to 100% success with immunotherapy by increasing the health of the microbiome at the get-go for the treatment seems so doable to me, and it just is really exciting, I think.
That sounds amazing. And to know it's something like fiber that we can all control, right? And like we can all be in control of what we're ingesting and putting in our body, knowing that that could be part of it. I know going through my cancer treatments, what I was learning from other patients and what was out there in the research really helped me stay healthy through my chemos and be able to work. I worked through my entire chemo. The only time I took off was surgery, because I had all these abilities and all this research that was teaching me at that time what would be good. So that's awesome, Dr. Whitman, so cool. Dr. Mita, what about you? What's one advancement in the research that you're doing that really is exciting you right now?
Yeah, so there are many fields that I feel eventually will explode in the next few years. But for the moment, I think the two aspects that I see extremely important and exciting are, one, it's the possibility of a personalized treatment with the avenue of having molecular profiling and treating the patients based on their own mutations in the tumor. I think this is fantastic, and I'm always happy to start a patient on a targeted therapy based on the molecular profiling, knowing that they have a higher rate of success in the response to the treatment. And we have this in clinical trials. We have multiple trials that are now screening patients for certain mutations, so we will not treat everybody blindly. It's like the story of the HER2 cancer, like breast cancer. If we would treat everybody with Herceptin, maybe we'll not have the same success rate as we had initially when we were selecting the patients that were HER2 positive. So that personalized aspect, I think it's extremely important, and I think that will continue, and we'll see more and more developments on that as the technology improves and eventually the new treatments arrive. The second aspect, it's the immune therapy. I think everybody's very excited about that. We still have to understand better how these treatments really work, what are exactly the side effects and how we deal with that. I enjoy hearing about this microbiome and all the healthy gut and everything, and then trying to talk with the patients about what they could do differently. But I think we're just, at the beginning of understanding the immune therapies. I think there's a full iceberg there that it's not yet, researched, but there are a lot of aspects in research going on. But I believe the immune therapies will continue to be very, very strong in the next few years, and eventually will define populations that will respond better or will help them with, like an approach like a microbiome to respond better. And will change eventually the type of immunotherapy that we use, not just checkpoint inhibitors like we have mostly now, but other aspects in immune therapy. So I think these two aspects or these two items are really exciting. And I think we'll see a lot of progress in the next years.
So cool. And so much, it seems like synergy and even future synergy between all things that are already happening. I love the concierge cancer treatment. If you're going to get it, you might as well get the best one that's for you. I love that idea. And I can't wait to hear more about that. But for sure that, we've talked about the challenges for women, especially in these roles. And I think in some of the presentations, you all, if not, yes, I think all five of you noted this, right? That this is getting to where you are is not easy and is always made harder for women. So I kind of want to look at a challenge, but also, when I ask about challenges, I also want to see like how you also were able to overcome some of those. And even if you're talking about your challenges, how you were able to do that. And if there's even a little note that someone could take away from that. So I'd love to pose this question to Dr. Liu and Dr. Guarnerio. So Dr. Guarnerio, why don't you tell us hardest time, biggest challenge you face and how you were able to sort of overcome it?
Sure, yeah. So her decision for sure was 12 years ago when I decided basically to move to another country, leave my family and start to do research because I didn't have so many possibilities in my own country. So that's for sure a hard decision, although a great decision looking back. But I would say probably the biggest challenge for me happened in 2018 when I started my lab. So that's my first lab, my first experience as junior faculty, junior investigator. And, you spend many years during PhD and postdoc, and you get trained about how to think critically about science, how to, pose the right question, how to do experiments. And nobody really teach you how to manage your lab. So now you start your lab and you are completely alone facing a different problem, like managing money, managing people, motivate your people. You feel really responsible for the career of your people. So this probably is the biggest challenge I had to face in my career. How did I overcome it? Well, maybe you can ask me in a couple of years because it's still a little bit too early on for me. I think in general, for sure I had some mentors, some people that helped me here at Cedars-Sinai and also Airwells. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody to ask questions because I'm pretty sure that what experience everybody else has experienced. So I'm pretty sure that there's people that can help. So probably having good mentors could help a little bit to overcome this challenge.
Yeah, and you all are certainly representatives, that being mentors, having folks within you, but then also as peer mentors too, even I believe working with each other or trying to find out what each of you are doing is just amazing. Dr. Liu, I know, especially with you, with your sort of roundabout roller coastery way of getting to where you are, just tell us a little bit about the challenges you have faced and how best you did to overcome those.
So I think for those of us doing research, NIH-funded research, one of the biggest challenges has to be the poor funding rate. So if you're getting your funding from NCI, for many years, unless you're in the top 8 percentile, you're not going to get funded. And you're competing with very good scientists, just as good as you are. And so you can imagine over the course of several years, how many people will give up. So we've lost a lot of talent because of the low funding rate. And that's, I think, is the major challenge facing researchers, men or women, both.
That's difficult. Do you, is it something that you're able to, I don't know if the work around it, right? Yeah.
I think I've seen many of my colleagues left for industry, and it's unfortunate because they love to be in academics. They love research. They love the creative side. They love to train people, to educate. So how do you overcome this? I think you really need a very supportive environment and bridge funding is a must especially for young investigators. And I think as a researcher, you just can't give up. If this is your dream, you keep at it. You keep trying. You know, I always tell my mentees, your chance of getting funded is 0 if you don't try, right? So you have to apply. You have to apply as many times as possible. You can't give up. If this is your dream, you keep at it.
Yeah. And I think at every step of the way, when when a negative comes or something doesn't happen, you maybe learn a little bit more to keep doing, but absolutely the giving up is, and it's hard when you see colleagues and folks that are very intelligent doing some great research leaving. I can only imagine, I see that in my field. I can only imagine what it's like in your field where actually saving lives with your research. Dr. DeVizio, I wanted to come to you because we're talking about sort of some past challenges, maybe some things in the future. We're hearing money, we're hearing, accessibility. What for you do you think, especially with women, are we facing in our future in terms of the challenges there? And how do you feel that, whether it's in the coming together and the work that you're doing, especially since I find it very interesting that a lot of your research has been global. You've been in different places, especially here in Los Angeles, in America. How can we sort of advance and make it hopefully a little bit easier for women to get into this field?
That's an interesting question. So I think women in particular, of course, they have to deal with one major problem, which is the balance with their personal and familiar life. But overall, I think most of the challenges that are experienced by women are experienced also by men. And I would go back to what Dr. Lu just said about the difficulty. I mean, there are difficulties in a science day life, from when they plan their experiments, they interpret the results, when they have to come up with the story for their publication, with the narrative for their grants, when they have to raise funds for their laboratory. And I think the only suggestion, if this is if people are really committed to this type of job, one important thing is to be resilient, to never give up. And I'm going to repeat a lot of what Dr. Lu just said, because there are several challenges, which, I mean, you're not alone. There are challenges that basically affect everybody. And perhaps by creating a community, a supporting scientific community, connecting with mentors, and try to get as much as possible about their experience, also their personal experience, not just talking about science or work, but even really trying to understand how mentors have overcome their challenges, I think is very important.
Yeah, that's really great. I think we do learn from others, and sometimes we forget to ask other women what they're going through, especially like in all of the talks that I've given. I've emceed or been a part of 6 different events, and the one thing I tell women is, like, talk about your problems as much as you talk about your successes, because inevitably someone else is feeling about that. And I don't mean problems. And like I mention it, like when I talk about, like, if you're going to ask your friend about the book that they're reading or where they went shopping for their shoes, ask them also if they've gotten their mammogram, and make sure you follow up to say, like, hey, remember that mammogram? Did you make that appointment or whatever? Those things are equally as important. Sometimes us as women need to kind of be more proactive about saying, like, this happened to me and I need you to know this because this is the way I was able to help and figure it all out. So I find it interesting too, because a lot of it is like being funded and research, and it really just comes down to that. And I think, Dr. Whiteson, I want to ask you about that. Like, how much does it mean to be funded by ACS in the work that you're able to do?
Well, I mean, it completely opened up a whole new avenue of research for our group. So it was game changing for lots of reasons. It was also very motivating to be funded by the ACS. I also have participated in walks and events. And since I've been funded, I've gone to speak in different community events, and I've gotten to meet a lot of people who are part of the reason that we have the funding for the ACS. So that's definitely very motivating. It also feels like a big responsibility, of course, that you want to make sure that you're making good choices with how to spend the research money. In my case, I was able to support a really spectacular PhD student who led the project that we've been doing to study the microbiomes associated with different types of polyps and colonoscopies here at UC Irvine. And my student, Julio Avalar Barragan is his name, he just published a really great paper about our study, and it was entirely because of that ACS funding that supported his, him being able to be a researcher in our lab, and that also supported the reagents and materials that we needed to be able to do the study. And it was a really fun project. We actually had UC Irvine recent graduates, like pre-med students, who went to help the doctors collect the samples. So it was a really cool collaboration between basic researchers and the clinicians. I think it was unusual to have a researcher in the room helping to collect the samples the way we set our project up with the ACS funding, and that funding supported the researchers to collect the samples too. And yeah, so it was a really fun experience. And in our paper, we were able to show that different polyp types have very distinguishable microbiomes. So even the difference between tubular adenomas and serrated polyps, which are harder to detect, we could see differences in the types of microbes that were present in those different polyp types. And so that was a really cool outcome. We didn't know if we were going to find that. So it was a really nice experience, and we were very grateful for the funding to make our project possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, and without that funding, you don't get that far, it's also important. So if there's anyone out there, yes, it's important. And if you have it and you can give, these women will need it and will be saving lives in the process. So please do that. This is my not so shameful plug. But I do want to, as we get to sort of the end, and I can't believe we're almost towards that end because I'm so enwrapped in what we're talking about. It is a lot about young women. There are so many young women out there and so many women in STEM. I see it even in the high school that my daughter used to go to. I see it, she's at Berkeley, go Bears, and what they're doing there at their school. And sometimes they can be dissuaded, sent out a different path, not really supported. So I want to end on that note with all of you, is how do we make sure that we create successful pathways for young women who wanted to get into these fields and do what you're doing, or even something brand new? And I'll start with Dr. DeVizio, sorry.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we create these paths? Of course, I think a lot can be still done in this regard. As Dr. Guarnerio mentioned, nobody trains us to be mentors, not only to manage a lab, but also to be mentors. So I think it is important to have this kind of conversations, and especially considering how challenging it is today to have access to funds and to develop all the expertise that everybody needs to be in research. I think we can create more courses for junior investigators to learn how to do this. But then I would also give the suggestion to all women who are in research to don't be afraid, try to be creative, come up with innovative ideas, go to conferences, ask your mentor to be involved in a scientific supporting community, identify a woman as a role model, a woman in career as a role model, and even if it happens, because it happens sometimes that you feel like your voice is not heard, just don't be afraid, don't be shy, and keep raising your voice, because you will be eventually heard. And so basically my message is, don't give up.
I love that. Dr. Mita, how about yourself? Advice, but also what pathways could be helpful for young women?
All right. I think Dolores has had great points, and I will echo all of them. I also have a 19-year-old who is at UCLA in neuroscience and very engaged and wanting to go to lab and, do an MD. So I have that, example in front of my eyes, and then also looking at other fellows and residents and medical students. So I couldn't agree more. I think, you have to tell them to go with their dreams, to just, if they feel a passion, to pursue that, to just go and talk with people, to find a mentor, to just really don't give up. Don't give up. There's so many issues we encounter every single day, and all our beautiful colleagues we have here, they always had grants that were not approved. In clinical research, we have protocols that are not eventually going well, or some side effects that patients have. It doesn't mean that we're going to give up doing clinical research or lab research. We're all going to continue to do that. So I think the biggest message for the new generation is find a good mentor, and then don't give up. Just, pursue your dreams.
I love that. And Dr. Liu, I think you started that whole don't give up thing. We should hashtag this for this speaker series. Don't give up, says all the doctors here. But that's one of the things. But what have you seen? Because I find in your own research that you were studying one thing and changed to something else. And that something else was the thing that kind of clicked the rest of it. So you're the innovator, and part of in all of this. So advice, and also what pathways do you think would be helpful for young women?
I do agree. And, one of the things that women do face that I think Dolores touched on is family. And Katrina also touched on. If you have children, you need to take time off. Right. And if you are the only child, you're going to be looking after your elderly parent, because that usually falls on the woman. So there's a lot more time that women investigators, researchers have to spend outside of work. And that is a challenge that we haven't talked about. And so there needs to be understanding from your department chair. There needs to be support for that. They need to be given more time for advancement. And in my own division, actually, almost all of my mentees are women. And, we actually have a grant in progress weekly session where I literally coach them through every single step. And it's you need to spend the time, because they're the next generation. They have to succeed, right? And I'm happy to say all three of them just got their R01s this year.
Hey, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So you need to learn to be good mentors, and you need to give your time to these people. Yeah. To mentor these young people, because it's essential.
Dr. Mita, I see your hands up. Did you want to add
something?
I
just wanted to show you what one patient gave to me. So I think I have that on my desk.
I don't think you can see. Is it
you don't see? Oh.
Put it right in front of your face, because I think that's maybe where we can see it. I can't see it very well, but can you describe what it is?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I will try to send it after that. My apologies.
Okay. But no, I appreciate that, because I think that those are the types of things that you learn from your patients, what it is that's working and not working. And Dr. Liu, thank you so very much for, whether you have children or don't have children, whether you're married or not married, the struggles that women face outside of just the work and the research is compounded. We have great male partners and great partners in general, but that's just a fact. In my business, same thing. I moved from New York City, where I was a main anchor, but I never saw my daughter because I worked as a main anchor in the evening. So I saw her for 1 hour every day for 4 years. And I was like, this isn't what I want. And I came here in what was a quote unquote demotion, but I found a tribe and a great place. And the storytelling that I do here sometimes would have been way better here than what I would have done there. So you just find your space, but you acknowledge that those are the difficulties. So really important point to put out there. Dr. Guinerio, yourself, advice and how do we move forward? How do we make these young women get in?
Yeah, I can echo about mentorship. I already touched about that. Like, I have to say that in my experience, directly or indirectly, I experienced both good mentorship and bad mentorship. And I can totally say that like bad mentorship really put you off the track. Like you need to find good mentors. I was not here today. Like if I didn't have very great mentors, particularly at the beginning of my career, particularly when I was like at university, when I started like to work in a lab, those were great mentors. And I think that this really helped to build the confidence that like Dolores was talking about, because women compared to like men sometimes are a little bit shy. Sometimes they just silent. They think that their ideas are not good, are not brilliant, not good enough, and they just don't say it. But at the end of the day, like the ideas are right or wrong, and you discover it later on by doing experiments and like trying to prove them. So like the voice need to be raised, that's for sure. So I think that the suggestion is really try to find good mentors, like talk to people, don't be shy, even send out, I don't know, 10 emails to people that you think that they can be good mentors. The one that answer probably is a good mentor and can take care of you. So just don't be shy, go for it.
That's such a good point there, especially if you're a bit of an introvert and that's not your nature, to try to find that within you to do that. Obviously, I am not an introvert, but sometimes it's still hard for me to ask for help and the things that I need. And that is very empowering to do that and then be able on the flip side to get that. All right, Dr. Whiteson, you don't have too much time. This is like a game of like be on television. You've got 30 seconds for me before I turn it around back to Kelsey.
Okay, well, I mean, I have to echo the don't give up mentality, because sticking to your path is how you end up getting to be in the room and getting to do the fun science in the future. So I've definitely experienced that a lot too. I've also had a lot of programs that helped me be able to stay as a researcher. So I feel grateful that there are a lot of people kind of looking out for us. So I think we need more of that.
Yeah. And I feel like everything that I'm hearing here is like reach out, speak up, don't give up, and, you know, continue to do it, because there are women like yourselves that are doing that. I've learned so much. I feel like I'm going to be so empowered to do I've got some great storytelling to do on my end. But thank you to all of the doctors and for ACS and ResearchHERs campaign for allowing me to be here and to be part of this again. I hope you learned a lot out there, because I certainly did. And with that, again, I'll send it back to the lovely Kelsey to wrap it all up for us.
Thank you, Lolita. And thank you so much to our amazing researchers from Cedars-Sinai and UC Irvine. I know we're at the top of the hour, but if everyone can stay with us just for a few more minutes, we'd really appreciate it. The conversation just was flowing so well, so we wanted to continue to be able to ask those questions. We had exciting news of the American Cancer Society recently. The American Cancer Society was recently honored the 50th ACS-funded researcher to receive the Nobel Prize. Dr. Carolyn Bertozzi was one of the 3 scientists rewarded the Nobel Prize in chemistry this last month. Dr. Bertozzi received several American Cancer Society grants early in her career and has mentored several ACS postdoctoral fellows. Her award brings the total number of Nobel laureates ACS has funded to 50. And Dr. Bertozzi becomes the first woman that ACS has funded to earn that honor. This was such exciting news. The Society's support of her now Nobel Prize winning work in chemistry began in 1993, and she has mentored 8 ACS funded researchers since 2001. 4 of them have been female. This announcement was an achievement for all women in research, and Dr. Bertozzi is paving the way for what we hope are many more female researchers. What a great moment and example to continue to support women-led cancer research. We close out 2022 and we move into 2023. We encourage all of you to join in the cause and support women-led cancer research by becoming a ResearchHERs ambassador. We're looking for more ambassadors who are passionate about women-led cancer research to join the movement, to raise awareness and critical funds to support the next big breakthrough in cancer research. During the past few years, we've seen hundreds of women who have signed on as ambassadors from various industries, including business, biotech, academia, the medical and healthcare field, and even college and high school students. The 2022 campaign has had a strong team, but we are looking for more to join us in the fight against cancer. If you or someone you know is interested in becoming a ResearchHERs ambassador, please visit our website at acsresearchers.org. I will put it also in the chat. You can scan the QR code on your screen to go directly to the website where you can see all the ResearchHERs bios. You can make a donation to the general campaign, learn more about ResearchHERs and how to get involved. With your help, we can sustain support of the best and brightest cancer research led by women. And I'll turn it back over to Lolita.
All right, well, I think with that, it is time for me to tell everybody that we are very happy to have been here. It's been a pleasure to have this virtual speakers series in the way that it's been, raising awareness in this 2022 campaign. And we're looking forward to an even better year in 2023. And with that, let's send it back to our campaign chair, Dr. Medina Kouaib, for our real last notes on what happened today. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Medina Kouaib. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. It was a real honor. And I have to tell you, Lolita, is it any wonder that I have such great admiration for the colleagues that have been presented today and to you as a 9-year cancer survivor? So yes, they did not disappoint. Lots of words of wisdom today to our younger female researchers. And I hope that this continues to motivate a generation for all of the work that is still needed in the cancer research field. And of course, a special thank you to the American Cancer Society and the ResearchHERs initiative. This is an important time to support women in cancer research at all levels. And we've just seen it today with our panelists and people who happen to be good colleagues and friends of mine as well. So I'm very proud to say that. I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Lolita Lopez from NBC4, for doing a phenomenal job as our moderator today. As always, Lolita, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to invite you to close us out.
All right, everyone. Well, if you're feeling as motivated as me, I hope you go out and do one, really important thing, which is to ask a woman in your family if they've gotten a mammogram, if they're doing their self-help checks, and make sure you follow through. And if they haven't gotten that appointment, make sure they get it on there. And what I like to do is always go get either a little bit of wine, a coffee, or some food afterwards, and just make it a whole event. Because I found my cancer with early detection, and I know people out there will continue to say this, but I was saved that way. And I just cannot say much my appreciation for the treatment that I got that helped save me. And it's all because of researchers like these women and so many others out there. So thank you, American Cancer Society, ResearchHERs, Foundation Cedars-Sinai for sponsoring this event. And with that, have a wonderful, wonderful day.